quick because Sector 1 was the quickest of anybody. So Manuela Gosner with a bit of a fight back here, potentially, before allowing Christoph Herney to get too far up the road. Needs to try and reel in the Team Zenith Scion car, which is currently P1. So the leading pack just breaking away a little bit from the others. Herney from Gosner. And Murat Kuhadaroglu continuing to chase down Alexander Nussbaumer, who is leader in the AM class. Just a little sluggish out of that turn there, but Alexander Nussbaumer with it all under control. It's Nussbaumer, Kuhadaroglu and Dusan Palkra, who P1, P2 and P3. As around has gone the 117 car, just as we mentioned, of Dusan Palkra. So Dusan Palkra goes around, the Scuderia Prague driver, puts himself and the car pointing back in the correct direction once again, but having lost out now. So Herney then, 1.4 seconds between himself and Manuela Gosner. Eric Chung is slowly just reeling in von Skeltermar. The gap is down to just 9/10. Now, an instant at the start between Rick Lovett and Corinna Gosner in car number 173 under investigation, as indeed is the start. Well, I don't think we've seen one race this year where the start hasn't been under investigation, to be honest. So Eric Chung then continuing to pursue the von Skeltermar car ahead of him. It's that car that is denying Eric Chung a podium place at the moment, because von Skeltermar running in P3, Eric Chung is P4. So top 8 cars are all Shell drivers before we get Alexander Nussbaumer and Murat Kuhadaroglu in the AMS. Great sound of these 488 cars around this Barcelona circuit, and on board with, and that's why Dusan Palkra went around then. It's a little bit of an assist there from Ingvar Madsen, I think. And this is Tommy Lindroth on Eric Prinot. Tommy Lindroth in the 127 car. And Eric Prinot then dropping further back down the order. Down to P17 now. So Christoph Herney continuing to lead and in quite a comfortable position, because he's 1.8 seconds to the good over Manuela Gosner, who's able to hold a reasonable pace and keep von Skeltermar behind. But the man, of course, with the clear track ahead of him is able to just nail every single turn, and that's exactly what Christoph Herney is doing. 2 seconds the gap now. Vladimir Hladek trying to reel in Ernst Kirschmeyer. Vladimir Hladek currently running in P7. Ernst Kirschmeyer is P6. This is Alexander Nussbaumer and Murat Kuhadaroglu. So on the last lap then, you can see a 1:53.983 from Nussbaumer, and Murat Kuhadaroglu was marginally quicker. So what would be a very good scenario here for Murat is for Alexander Nussbaumer to get involved with a big fight with Christian Kinch ahead of him, and that would play into the hands of Murat Kuhadaroglu, who is getting closer, but it's all very well getting closer. You've got to try and find a way past as well. In the AMS, it's Nussbaumer, Kuhadaroglu, Ingvar Madsen, the 1, 2, 3. In the pros, Herney, Gosner and Skeltermar in the Shell category, as opposed to pros perhaps. So Kuhadaroglu then just quietly going about this Alexander Nussbaumer car as Ingvar Madsen goes out and is on the gravel. Will he be returning from there? So, of course, he was involved in that skirmish with Dusan Palkra. I wonder whether that has caused a deflated tyre. Yes, you can see there's certainly some damage at the front of the Ingvar Madsen car. It's not a puncture so much as the coolant. And Ingvar Madsen, you will recall, was involved in that situation with Dusan Palkra, and actually ends up probably losing grip on his own coolant, which is coming out of the car. And that brought about definitely by the contact with Dusan Palkra. Now, going into the race, he was leading the AM Championship by just a point. So this is bad news for Ingvar Madsen. So, car number 112, Rick Lovett, gets a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision at the start. Now, we saw Corinna Gosner going out wide, and what the message on the timing screen would allude to is that there was contact between Rick Lovett and Corinna Gosner. Because a few moments ago, the message said incident was being investigated between car number 112 and also the car of 173. So, 10-second time penalty for Rick Lovett then. That will be added to his time. He's currently running in P11. 10 seconds being added to his time is going to put him way, way back down the order. Here is race leader Christoph Herney, who has his lap time over the last lap relative to Manuela Gosner was significantly slower by about 7/10. So all of a sudden, Manuela Gosner, perhaps sensing the opportunity to be able to try and get on terms with Christoph Herney. Ah, yes, Rick Lovett, you could see there. Corinna Gosner was right alongside Rick Lovett. He just turned to the right-hand side, probably unaware of the fact that she was there, as he was trying to get past the Thomas Gosner car. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It certainly wouldn't have been malicious, I wouldn't have said. We can see it from being on board with Ingvar Madsen, as he loses out to David Lim and is able to get past Corinna Gosner. And there you can see, yes, there was the contact between Lovett and Gosner. It put Corinna actually on the grass, so that's where she lost the momentum. So race stewards have looked at that and adjudged that a time penalty for Rick Lovett is the appropriate course of action. Into the pit lane for Ingvar Madsen. I suspect that will be a race retirement for him. And now Murat Kuhardaroglu is within just 5/10 of Alexander Nussbaumer in this battle for P1 in the AMS. Currently led by Alexander Nussbaumer. Murat Kuhardaroglu is P2. David Lim is P3. So another incident under investigation is that incident between Dusan Palkra and Ingvar Madsen, which we saw a few moments ago now. Ingvar Madsen, of course, has already paid a penalty by virtue of the fact the damage to the car means that car will be retired. But, of course, it has put Dusan Palkra way down the order. P16 is running in the race overall at the moment. So Murat Kuhardaroglu trying to track the Alexander Nussbaumer car. But in fairness, Alexander Nussbaumer is responding. And so too is Christoph Herney right at the front of the pack. Here's Vladimir Hladik then on Ernst Kirschmeyer. This battle for P6 in the Shell drivers class. So Vladimir Hladik, who, as I mentioned earlier on in the program, didn't have a very good time of it in qualifying, and is certainly paying the price for that, because he's got to fight his way back from being further down the grid than he would like to be. And in his target sights now is the Baron service car number 109, which is the car of Ernst Kirschmeyer. And you can see Vladimir Hladik all over the back of the Ernst Kirschmeyer car at the moment. And what makes that very difficult is, of course, that both Vladimir Hladik and Ernst Kirschmeyer driving for the Baron service team. Every driver out there for himself, of course, but there you can see who's done what and where on the left-hand side, the grid progress graphic for you. Vladimir Hladik, like Ernst Kirschmeyer, having moved up 5 places, but it's Alexander Nussbaumer who's moved up 6 places. Down 14 is Eric Prinot, having a torrid time of it. So Ernst Kirschmeyer now is making the car as wide as possible to try and deny Vladimir Hladik. Vladimir Hladik with a very different line through that turn, carrying a bit more speed and just trying to find a way, and now dives to the inside of Ernst Kirschmeyer. Kirschmeyer will perhaps try and come back now as they go downhill and get underneath the Vladimir Hladik car, but he's unable to do so. Good overtake from Vladimir Hladik, who moves himself up from P7 to P6 now and relegates Ernst Kirschmeyer. So Vladimir Hladik now can potentially think about getting on terms with Christian Kinch, but Christian Kinch is about 1 3/4 seconds up the road. it's Thomas Gostner that they will be chasing, because of course they're both past Christian Kinch. So Thomas Gostner is the driver that's actually 3 seconds up the road. So the battle for P1 then continuing in the AMS as Alexander Nussbaumer and Murat Kuhaduroglu. That little two-way party has been joined now by the Canadian racer Rick Lovett. Bear in mind, Rick Lovett has got a time penalty to be added to the race time overall. But now Alexander Nussbaumer is another one that's having to stick his elbows out from Murat Kuhaduroglu. Whoa, you can see under braking there, Kuhaduroglu getting close. And all of a sudden, there are a few things happening here, because von Skeltermar is now under threat from Eric Chung, who's got a bit closer to him. So this is the battle for P3 in the race. Final podium place, of course, for the Shell drivers, which at the moment that's with von Skeltermar, but Eric Chung is pushing him hard now. We reach about half distance with 14.5 minutes of the race remaining. Christoph Herney leading by 2 seconds over Manuel Gostner, who in turn is 4 seconds up the road from von Skeltermar. Von Skeltermar's pace is dropping back as his partner Cyril looks on, and Von's pace is dropping because he's having to defend against Eric Chung. And Chung at the moment, I would say, is definitely the faster of those two cars. So Cassel Racing versus Formula Racing then for the 198 car. And 4 seconds Manuel Gostner has built over this pair in P3 and P4 at the moment. Her and Herney have escaped up the road. So von Skeltermar there in the front of the car, really compressing down. And Von's focusing on really trying to defend from the car of Eric Chung. Eric Chung, who has taken 3 race wins in class this season and has been on the podium a further 2 times. He's having a stellar time of it, and of course would love to be on the podium here in Barcelona as they cross the timing line. But look now, you could just see at the top of your picture, now Vladimir Hladik has been released from Ernst Kirchmayr. He's another driver that is absolutely up the road. You can see that Fons is just looking a little perhaps more raggy as he's being threatened by Eric Chung. Thomas Gostner is dropping down the order and in the pit lane. So Thomas Gostner then, obviously a problem for him. So Skeltermar then, to be fair, is seemingly managing this really rather well. And Eric Chung, you can see flashing his lights there, hoping just to break von Skeltermar's concentration for a moment to provoke just the tiniest of errors. But Eric is certainly not as close to Fons as he once was. Herney maintains the lead of 2 seconds over Manuel Gostner for P1 and P2. And look at this. I said at the top of the picture, you'll see how Vladimir Hladik, now he's been released from Ernst Kirchmayr, is up the road, and the engineers look at the Thomas Gostner car then. Obviously a problem with the Thomas Gostner car, and that will be the 3rd retirement of the race. So the 161 car, unfortunately, is out of the race, joining that of Ingvar Madsen and Agata Smolka. So the car is running. You can actually hear that from our onboard shot there, or sorry, our camera shot there. This battle for the AMS continues, and now all of a sudden Kuhaduroglu and Nussbaumer then going to be in traffic, because the Christian Kinch car is ahead. As there you can see Christian Kinch, and there's Manuel Gostner, who of course was disadvantaged right at the start of the race. Another one into the pits is Rick Lovett. Now, we already knew that Rick Lovett had got a time penalty to be added as Dusan Palcra reels in David Lim for the final podium place in the AMS. Of course, Dusan Palcra was disadvantaged by the contact earlier on with the car of Ingvar Madsen. So David Lim then under threat now from the car of Dusan Palcra. And there, Dusan Palcra dives to the inside of David Lim and set that up absolutely perfectly. David Lim would want to turn in, but was unable to do so because the gap that he was trying to turn into was full of the Dusan Palcra car. So Dusan Palcra then picks up the final podium place in terms of the AM drivers. You can see Dusan Palcra is able to get up the road now. The battle for P9 is between Guy Fawkes and Tommy Lindroth. So both of them are Shell drivers. Tommy Lindroth then in the 127 car, Guy Fawkes in the 120 car. So Tommy Lindroth then, the 127 machine, engineered by Barron, of course. And here you can see just how close these two are getting now. What have we got? 8.5 minutes of the race remaining. Herney leading from Manuel Agostina in the Shell class. Alexander Nussbaumer continuing to keep Murat Kuhadaroglu behind in the AMS as we're watching this fight going on between Tommy Lindroth and Guy Fawkes, currently running P11 and P12 overall in the race. And Eric Chung then has still not been able to find his way past von Skeltermar for that P3, and just beginning to run out of time to do so. Of course, he's run for a long time in the dirty air behind the von Skeltermar car, whether that has compromised the performance of the tyres. And you can see there that a much tighter line was taken by von Skeltermar than Eric Chung, who's just been looking for any opportunity to try and get by and get past the 177 car, but von Skeltermar has been able to defend that position for lap after lap after lap. And as they head towards the start-finish line once again, it's another lap in the book for von Skeltermar in P3. And whilst these two are fighting, you can see Vladimir Hladik has now narrowed the gap between Skeltermar, Chung and himself to just 5 seconds. I say just 5 seconds, but he's been throwing everything at it. It probably took him longer than he would have liked to get past Ernst Kirchmayr. Can Vladimir Hladik get on the back of these two before the end of the race? I doubt it, to be honest. He's certainly in the 153 ones, whereas Fons and Eric are in the 153 sixes and sevens. So whilst he is taking tenths out, it's not enough. Here is our race leader, Christoph Herney, then, now up to 3 seconds ahead of Manuel Agostina. And in turn, a further 6 seconds, they both are ahead of von Skeltermar and Eric Chung in that P3 place as they climb uphill then. Manuel Agostina in car number 183. This is the race leader then, Christoph Herney. And if it would remain, or were to remain this way, this would be the third win of the season for Christoph Herney, to add to his first pole position, which he was so delighted in getting in the qualifying session earlier on today. Into the final 6 minutes of the race, Herney from 3.2 seconds ahead of Manuel Agostina, von Skeltermar and Eric Chung, P3, P4, then is Vladimir Hladik, Ernst Kirchmayr. Leader in the AMS is Alexander Nussbaumer from Murat Kuhadaroglu, and Dusan Palcra at the moment occupying the final podium place in the AM classification. So downhill into turn number 1 goes Christoph Herney from Manuel Agostina. Von Skeltermar continues to see off the charge and challenge from Eric Chung. And Vladimir Hladik banks another lap, which actually on that occasion was marginally slower than the two cars ahead. So that means he's not reduced the gap between this man and Eric Chung and himself, Vladimir Hladik, running in P5. Eric Chung is potentially paying the price for running behind Von Skeltermar and has maybe taken a little bit more out of the tyres than the Kessel racer has ahead of him. So Von Skeltermar then, P3. And Fons has not been a regular visitor to the podium this year. In fact, just once he took a P2 at Silverstone in the UK in race 2, I seem to recall. But anyway, at the moment he's on for a podium with the 4.5 minutes remaining if he can continue to hold at bay Eric Chung. Herney looking pretty untroubled at the front of the pack. And Guy 4 is still able to see off the charge and challenge from Tommy Lindroth. As now Tommy Lindroth almost puts himself alongside the Guy 4 car. But 4 knew exactly where to place it for the run downhill and to deny Tommy Lindroth any opportunity. 3 3/4 minutes remaining. This battle for P9, which has raged for lap after lap after lap. No question about it that Tommy Lindroth has got the pace, but cannot seem to provoke Guy 4 into making an error, which is really what he needs. And of course, whilst this is going on, Dusan Palkra is getting ever closer to them. Dusan Palkra running in a different category. However, in the race overall, Dusan Palkra could find himself onto the back of these two. Let's go on board with Tommy Lindroth now, who's got the inside line. Just wasn't quite close enough. Lindroth really fighting hard here, taking as much curb as he dares. 4th gear, 5th gear now. Maximum revs, and as they cross the timing line into 6th gear goes Tommy Lindroth, then chasing down that car ahead of him. Brilliant onboard shot. Into 7th now, absolutely flat, running downhill before heavy braking. Lindroth turns into the right-hander. And then right on the back bump up of Guy 4's car. So in the remaining 2 minutes, can Tommy Lindroth find a way past the car number 120? Giving him the hurry up now is Dusan Palkra, who's right behind Tommy Lindroth. They're running in different classes, but even so, it's just giving Tommy Lindroth another propellant, if you like, up the road. And Guy 4 is making the car as wide as possible to try and deny Tommy Lindroth. Herney, Ghostner, Skeltermar at the moment will be on the podium in the Shell drivers, and on the podium for the AMS it's going to be Nussbaum, Kuada-Ruglu, and then Dusan Palkra, who's at the back of this little pack now, if it all stays the same over the remaining minute and 3/4. But we are on to the final lap now. So Tommy Lindroth now having to defend from Dusan Palkra. Dusan Palkra dives to the inside of Tommy Lindroth. It's probably quite wise from Lindroth there. Just let him go and then see if he can follow him as he tries to track the car ahead of him now, which is Guy 4. But it's all a bit too late, frankly. So there is Guy 4. Don't think Dusan Palkra is going to be able to get onto him. And Christoph Herney then was delighted to have taken his first pole position. He's had wins before in the Ferrari Challenge, but it was his first pole position, and he really hasn't looked at all troubled in this race. A very good margin of some 4.3 seconds over Manuel Ghostner, and both of those two have opened up a gap of 6 seconds over Von Skeltermar and Eric Chung, who are running in P3 and P4. So Christoph Herney then, who, as I mentioned, this will be his third win of the season. If he's able to hold on to this P1 place, and there's nothing barring some technical disaster or a mistake of magnanimous proportions that would prevent him from taking the checkered flag, I would suggest. Magnanimous or monumental, either will do. It would need to be a huge mistake. And Christoph Herney is a very focused driver, it has to be said, and Zenith Scion have delivered a car which has had the pace, and he's been able to pedal it to aplomb as Christoph Herney heads towards the checkered flag to take the win. A very, very good drive from Christoph Herney. Manuela Gosner equally taking P2, a good drive from her. Von Skeltermar takes his second podium of the season. P4 would go the way of Eric Chung. And P5 is going to be Vladimir Hladik. A good fight back from Vladimir Hladik. He was out of position in qualifying for whatever reason, just didn't seem able to put it together, and Ernst Kirschmeyer will take P6. So there you can see the Christian Kinch car. And there the 136 car of Alexander Nussbaumer, who wins for the AMS. And Tommy Lindroth then. Been a good showing from Tommy Lindroth. So Tommy Lindroth picking up that P9 place in the end. Eric Prenot did finish the race P10, but an extraordinary drop-off of pace that he had. And Christoph Herney then celebrating his success as he makes his way around the track. Third win in a row for Alexander Nussbaumer in the AMS. And there you can see the hand out of the window from Eric Chung. Lots of applause, and the marshals being part of that as well. And von Skeltermar then all making their way back now on their slowing down lap. Murat Kuhadaroglu. And there, the number 120 car of Guy 4 then was chased all the way by Tommy Lindroth. And Dusan Paukra then P3 in the AMS. Turned around earlier on in the race, of course, by that contact with Ingvar Madsen, who sadly was one of the drivers we lost in the race, including Thomas Gostner as well, and also Rick Lovett and Aggie Smolka. So Christoph Herney parks up in front of the P1. Board in the Parc Fermé area. And confirmation of the result to come on screen then. The top three in each of the categories. In Shell, first of all, Christoph Herney, Manuela Gosner, and von Skeltermar. And in the AMS, Alexander Nussbaumer, Murat Kuhadaroglu, and Dusan Paukra. Those the drivers will be seeing on the podium. And Manuela Gosner then celebrating her P2. Dad Thomas goes to congratulate. And gloves are thrown somewhat nonchalantly onto the top of the car. There is the von Skeltermar car. So he banks a P3 place. Let's take a look at the highlights of that race once again. So it was all thumbs up at the start of the race then, and the rolling lap came to an end as they headed towards the lighting gantry then. You can see Corinna Gosner just got squeezed onto the grass by Rick Lovett, who would pick up a time penalty for that. Christoph Herney and Manuela Gosner side by side going into turn number 1, but Christoph Herney with his nose in front and was not going to be troubled for the rest of the race, to be fair. You can see that Eric Prinot's partner Monica was not looking too impressed, and Dusan Palko would not be too impressed with that little turnaround assist from Ingvar Madsen, which would spell his race retirement. You can see Eric Prinot lost something in the car during the course of the race, and losing a lot of coolant was Ingvar Madsen following the contact on Dusan Palko, and he had to retire the car. Vladimir Hladik, who I mentioned was out of position really right at the start of the race, he had to do a lot of chasing and a lot of overtaking, and of course, having been turned around, so too did Dusan Palko. So von Skeltermar's partner Cyril then would see her husband bank a P3, and Tommy Lindroth was doing his level best to overtake, but the race win for the Shell drivers would go the way of Christoph Herney, followed by Manuela Gosner and von Skeltermar. And taking the AMS win, Alexander Nussbaumer from Murat Kuhardaroglu and Dusan Palko. So back to the live pictures then, as the drivers are hustled off towards the podium. Well done, von Skeltermar. P3. We'll be seeing him on the podium, of course, congratulated by Ronnie Cassell. Herney, Gosner, Skeltermar, the 1, 2, 3 in Shell, and the 1, 2, 3 Nussbaumer, Kuhardaroglu, and Dusan Palko for the AMS. So as the graphics indicate, we'll be heading up to the podium shortly. Here's the classification in full. Christoph Herney, Manuela Gosner, von Skeltermar, Eric Chung. Then it was Vladimir Hladik, Ernst Kirschmeyer, Christian Kinch, Corinna Gosner, Guy for Tommy Lindroth, the top 10 with regards to the Shell drivers. And then Eric Prinot and the Rick Lovett and Thomas Gosner car unfortunately end up in the pit lane, so not classified. So the number 183 car of Manuela Gosner. You can see the podium being readied as we speak. So in the AMS, it was Alexander Nussbaumer, Murat Kuhardaroglu, and Dusan Palko heading David Lim, and retirements for Ingvar Madsen and Agatha Smolka. So we're about to get the podium underway then. And von Skeltermar will be on the third step of the podium for Kessel Racing. Here comes Manuela Gosner, a very good drive from her. On the top step of the podium then, pole position and P1 in the race, Christoph Herney. And the national anthem to play out for Christoph Herney.
Power claps for this podium. On the podium.
So the anthem playing out for Christoph Herney. And here comes the trophy presentation. Head of Ferrari GT Sporting Activities, Mr. Antonello Coletta, making the trophy presentation. First of all to von Skeltermaar, then to Manuela Gosner, and race-winning trophy to go to Christoph Herney. So, all smiles on the podium then. Team Zenith Sion, of course, receiving a trophy as well. And to Michele Mambrella then, advising everyone how to pose for the photographs. And the photos all taken, then it will be time for the champagne. Skeltermaar is going to be quickest. Yeah, he was. Just quickest with the champagne. Christoph Herney taking a swig of it, and why not? So, slow-mos of the top three then. Von Skeltermaar, P3. P2, Manuela Gosner. What a musical backdrop to that podium then. The wonderful Earth, Wind and Fire and Boogie Wonderland. It was good to hear that. Well done, whoever's responsible for that. Christoph Herney then, race-winning car, slow-mo. Good respect and congratulations between von Skeltermaar and Christoph Herney there. And the champagne was something to be enjoyed. In the Drivers' Championship then, oh, how close it is now. 138 points to Eric Chung and 129.5 to Christoph Herney. Going to make the next race very exciting, isn't it? I think so. Of course, their next race coming up tomorrow. Races.ferrari.com is where you'll find out all the latest points and the information with regards to the Ferrari Challenge. Let's go on to the AM podium now then. And it's Dusan Palkra, Murat Kuadaroglu, and Alexander Nussbaumer. And Formula Racing then, who pick up yet another trophy. So here comes the trophy presentation then for the AMS, as Dusan Palkra then receives his trophy. And Francesco Bianchi then, the head of Ferrari Europe and Africa, making the trophy presentations. Murat Kuhadaroglu receives his. And Alexander Nussbaumer then, with his third win in a row. And Formula Racing add yet another trophy to their collection. The trophies all held high. Von Skeltermaar. So photographs done and dusted then, and then it will be time for the champagne. That's nice, look. Barcelona engraved, embroidered towels. Here comes the champagne. Well, they're all a bit sluggish with that. Murat Kuhadaroglu was the quickest with the champagne. And confirmation of Nuspama, Kuhadaroglu and Dusan Palkra, P1, P2 and P3. Races.ferrari.com then. Where you'll find out all the information with regards to who's what and where in the Drivers' Championship and the points at the moment as we get top three of the AM drivers then. In super slow-mo, Dusan Palkra, P3. P2 would go the way of Murat Kuhadaroglu. And there is the 133 car. And a P1 to Alexander Nuspama. And there is the race-winning 136 car. So there we have it. Stand by. Another race to come from Coppa Shell tomorrow. Please make sure you join us for that. But from all of us here at Barcelona, for now, the Circuit de Catalunya, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.